Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Shannon J. Gregg with us today. She's a PhD, but also president at Cloud Adoption Solution. She's an adjunct professor at Point Park University, a board member, a speaker. She loves talking about sales, productivity, strategy, leadership, operations, and yeah, she's also an author, of course. So, high achiever we have with us today. This one is brought to you by podfire.com. Podfire helps you start your podcast with AI if you want to monetize it with lead generation, sponsorships, and getting paid by YouTube AdSense. You can go to podfire.com. We have a free ebook for you there. Shannon, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Nowadays is the same as all of the days. I'm just constantly thinking about how do we delight customers better by preparing our go-to-market teams with the people, process, and technology they need to really succeed.
Right. And what's your background? Because you do a lot of things. Let's start with the early days. I see you started in sales, then you were head of marketing, slowly you grew up the corporate ladder, and eventually you started your own business, right?
You got that right. I started with a degree in English literature, which means you go into sales, right? What else do you do with that? I have always been interested in the customer psychology and how we help people best by helping them uncover solutions. So yeah, I started off in a nuclear non-proliferation software shop where I did alliances and sales. I know. And I've always just been in regulated industries, so that makes the sales process even more challenging, and I love that sort of challenge.
Right. And why start your own business? What tickled you to go in that very odd and unconventional and hard direction?
Yes, yes, and yes. Those are the right words. Had been speaking at events. Salesforce had me speak at Dreamforce and at World Tour, and I was talking specifically about in merger and acquisition situations. How do you merge not just your technology, but also your people so that you can retire quota faster without that sort of weird cultural divide? And people just kept asking me, can you help my company with that? And eventually, Charles, it was inevitable.
Love it. And the company, how's it been doing? It's been like 7 years. What have been the ups? What have been the downs?
Fantastic. Been really great. We've had double digit growth every year, but I think that's because we're so focused on developing a relationship with a customer. So we've got a really manageable cadre of customers that we're super close to. We feel like we work with them inside of their companies, their organizations, which we love, they love. They can call on us when they need us and then sort of go latent whenever they are working on installing whatever changes that they've made. And the ups are watching people say, wow, that really made a difference. And the downs are making sure that we are balancing out sales and delivery. And I think that's the challenge with any service organization.
Right. And okay, you talk about sales, you talk about productivity. Like, what's your core strength? Like, what's Shannon core essence and strength as a CEO?
It's always looking for scalability. So understanding where can something be repeated? Where's something that we've done before? What can we systematize ourselves? And then how do we send that out to our customers and say, we had the same exact challenge. Here's how we solved it. You should solve it this way too. So even though we're in an entirely custom business, being able to say, this can be solved in a manner that will help you so that you're not, paying big four prices for a solution that's going to help you really quickly.
And how are you using AIs and automations nowadays to scale systems for you and your clients?
So AI for us is something, I'm very interested in thinking about how do we use it for things to be not only effective but efficient while thinking about, privacy, right? I think a lot of people are jumping into AI without thinking about what happens when it goes onto someone else's server. So of course we're using it for communication. We're teaching our customers how to use it in their go-to-market approach when it comes to marketing or anything that's paperwork, deliverables, standard work instruction. So we're using a lot of Gen AI. And of course, we're looking at places that we would build custom automations and say, now here's how AI can do point-to-point integrations without you paying for something that is inevitably going to need to be changed 3 times a year.
And tell me a bit more about your ICP. Are they mid-sized companies? Are they large enterprises? What are their demographics and psychographics, and where do they hang out?
Yeah, great. So they're mostly mid-level, mid-commercial, mid-market companies who recognize that they have a need for scale and automation, but probably don't have the need for an internal FTE on it. Primarily, again, in regulated industries. I came out of the life sciences, so my practice is mostly built in the life sciences, although in our company, we do have a wealth management and SaaS practice as well. So we're primarily dealing with people who are heads of sales or marketing or heads of IT who recognize they've got a CRM as their single source of truth, but need to know how do we make it so that our sales, customer service, and field people can be more efficient using our technology.
Right. And how long is the sales cycle? What's the ticket size? Do you run on like a roster of 5 clients and you're good for the year? Like, tell me a bit more about that.
We like to get super close to the customer. So while we do projects, most of our customers are on almost a managed services model. So, they will say, these are the 7 things I want to get done this year. We'll help put them inside of their approach. So what other projects do you have? How do we fit those in? And then we really cozy up to them and watch their industry, because we're so niche down on 3 primary industries. We know when there are going to be things, say the FDA says, that are going to impact the way that they are doing go to market. So we stay focused on that sort of thing as well.
And is it a yearly retainer? Is it a quarterly retainer? How high ticket is it? 5, 6 figures?
Yeah, it really depends. So if they're doing a pretty major implementation of, Salesforce Service Cloud or Salesforce Sales Cloud, that could be a really high ticket, a once sort of option. But because my PhD dissertation is on CRM user adoption, I know quick wins work best. So we try to help people temper their expectations and say, make a change, roll it out, make a change, roll it out. So we really get involved with them in a way that is fresh and comfortable. Do we have monthly retainers? Sure. Am I going to make somebody be held hostage to a 36-month agreement? Absolutely not, because I want them to make the changes they need and then let their sellers go sell.
Yeah, I like that. Your book, what was the thesis behind it? It's about time, it's called. Is it a fancy business card? Has it brought you nice business?
I just was on a call this morning with my co-author of that book, Arshawn McBride, and we talked about how it helps us to establish credibility. It does
Hmm.
work as a business card. I'll give it to people and say, here you go, all my information is on here. But it also is a good reminder for my own self. One of the chapters in there is learn to flex your no muscle. And that's one of the things I have to work on daily as a business owner, to say, no, that doesn't fit inside of our ICP. It's a great business opportunity, but not for us. So sometimes it's just reference material for my own self.
And what are the top 3 insights in that book?
Yeah, so I think one is that Toyota principle of asking why 5 times. Our
Hmm.
company is built on that. So making sure we don't just listen to what the user thinks they want, but dig down underneath to understand what their real sort of need is. The second is being able to know when and where to say no. And then the third one is keeping people, process, and technology balanced. So you don't buy beautiful technology with people who don't understand how to use it or don't want to use it.
You also do book reviews. I'm on your YouTube here, and I see a bunch of my some of my top book. I see yeah, New Sales Simplified. Read that one. Social Selling, Lead or Get Out of the Way. What have been well? First, what's the strategy behind that? You get a couple of views. You grow your brain. You also share these books with your audience. What was your strategy behind these book briefs?
I'm glad you asked. I started working on these book reviews just as a way to get across to my team and to my students.
Hmm.
Here's why you have to continue learning. And
Yep.
this was a way that forced me to be able to summarize an entire book in, 2.5 minutes. And so I thought, well, why not just record them and put them out there? And if one person likes it, great. And it has been a really nice way for me to keep track of books that I've read and liked enough to review, so that I don't forget New Sales Simplified exists and I remember to refer back to it.
Right. Yeah, and I'm bullish on that approach. I'm thinking to build a content channel, one on YouTube and two on my website with GPT,
Love it.
talking about scale. Right. I will have GPT do the book reviews. I will read my own book reviews because I don't even have time to read books nowadays. And I'll do it with my own SaaS. It's called bookwritegpt.com, and it helps you like summarize and
Cool.
write book. It's pretty neat. I want to ask you, you're a speaker. Do you still get speaking gigs nowadays. Are you bullish on those? Is it like a similar thought leadership slash authority thesis like the book that you wrote?
Yeah, so most of the time when I'm speaking, which I still do, maybe 6 times a year, I'm mostly focused on that golden triangle: people, process, technology, or AI or application user adoption. So thinking about how to build your systems for the people that use it, with principles of human-centered design. So I love it. I love being in front of audiences, primarily because the questions that they have afterwards remind me of the things people don't know. So it forces me to do more research or ground myself back in, theory that people aren't necessarily aware of.
And is Dreamforce still growing or is it losing traction?
Dreamforce, it's funny. I just was thinking about Dreamforce the other day. 2019, there were 171,000 attendees. And I think last year there were under 50,000. And what that does, and that means live on ground. I mean, there were millions of people that joined to watch it. But what that does is remind me, if as an event producer, you have to think about that online approach. Do you want to go online because you will lose people on ground, but does that open up an audience for you that's interesting? So I think the Dreamforce on ground experience is nowhere near as big as it used to be when they used to bring cruise ships into San Francisco because they ran out of hotel rooms.
Well, I didn't know about that. What about Salesforce as a company? How's the stock nowadays? And is Mark Benioff innovating on the AI front still?
Mark Benioff will not stop talking about AI. He is so big on AI, and I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl Sunday night. I
No.
did because I love the commercials.
Yeah.
Um, the game itself was pretty boring, but Mark Benioff had many commercials. I think I saw numerous commercials during the Super Bowl, which is wild, isn't it? And
Yeah.
all based on Agentforce. So yeah, Salesforce continues to grow. If you watch their numbers, I mean, they just overproduce year after year, and AI is the core center strategy right now. That's all anybody at Salesforce is talking about.
Right. It's always funny, right? Like just a couple of Super Bowl ads, just a couple of tens of millions in one day.
Right.
It's always fascinating. Okay. Yeah, I want to ask you as well. You often talk about leadership and ops. Like, do you have your own team? And what is your take on AI agents to actually go out and execute stuff for you?
So AI agents, I think, are such an important thing to think about strategically. So what is the outcome that you want? So where can AI agents help? So if it's point and shoot customer service to, answer FAQs, it's like a sort of grown up FAQ methodology. For my team, we're not using agents because everything that we're doing is so customized. So I can't imagine one of my customers saying, "Hey, cloud adoption solutions bot, tell me how to fix this issue I'm having with my integration in Sales Cloud." So we're not personally using it, but we certainly have many clients that we're designing AI bots for who can say, "We have a knowledge base and here's how it can be represented."
Right. What are you reading nowadays? What are your favorite books for 2025?
Yes, so I actually just started a reread of Influence by Robert Cialdini. I've probably read this book 4 times, but
Yeah.
I picked it back up because I think some of the techniques are going to be different as we think about this hybrid, virtual, on-ground approach when we think about events or prospecting or anything like that. So I actually am about a third of the way into a reread of that. And I think when you think about sales, there's always going to be more sales books that come out, but to me, it's all about psychology. So Mindset by Carol Dweck is coming right after Influence. I'm going to reread that one too this year.
Right. And what's your take on podcasts? I'm surprised that you don't have yours.
Well, I love podcasts. I'm a podcast person. I have a friend who's always like, "Yeah, what podcast did you listen to yesterday?" Because I am constantly, I am the number one consumer of podcasts I know. I actually am working on one. So you actually are the first person to know that out loud in public. So in the back half of the year, I'm going to be working on a podcast as well. I love them. I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah, I was too, I think like 5 years ago. And that was like, why not share value with the world for free? Then I was like, okay, I can monetize that. I can get a bunch of clients just running my own podcast, advertising my own companies. I can get sponsors. Then YouTube started paying me. So I think it's like one of the best ways to open conversations in 2025. I don't believe that direct sales are as effective anymore.
I completely agree with you, especially when you look at the emails spam changes that came through last year. So that sort of outbound personalization at scale, which I think is a farce anyway, is never going to work. So why not attract the people who are most likely to be in your tribe with content? I am totally in agreement.
So you have the podcast for this year. What are your other business and personal goals for 2025?
Yeah, so Cloud Adoption Solutions, we are growing. We are so excited to watch the way that our industries are changing. We also have an event that's called Life Sciences Dreamin. So we put on 2 roadshow events and then 2 two-day conferences in the last 2 years. It so happens that this year Dreamforce put their date right on top of the date that we had set aside for that conference. So we're going to push it back a couple of months, but that's a pretty big deal for us. It's a really nice place to pull together go-to-market executives in the life sciences industry.
Right. And where can people find out more about you, Shannon?
LinkedIn is my favorite place to be. I love it on there. I love to see what people are up to. So Shannon J. Gregg on LinkedIn, which I recommend to everybody to use something like that, because when I get AI in my LinkedIn inbox and it says Shannon J. Dot, I know it's not a real person.
Yeah, that's always a sign. So that was Shannon J. Gregg and Charles